Hello, and welcome to Curious Crime. Today, we're going to delve into the story of Robert Black, one of the UK's most notorious serial killers. Black was responsible for a series of horrific crimes known as the Midlands Triangle murders, which left a community reeling. We'll be taking a closer look at the life and crimes of Robert Black, examining his background and motivations, and discussing the impact of his brutal actions on his victims and their families. Robert Black was born in Grangemouth, Scotland in 1947. His father passed away when he was just 2 years old, leaving his mother to raise him and his siblings. Black was known for his strange behavior from a young age, which included stealing from classmates and setting fires. By the time he was a teenager, he had already been convicted of a string of burglaries. Black's early life was marked by instability and loss, which may have contributed to his later criminal behavior. He was known to be a loner and was bullied by other children, which further isolated him from his peers. He struggled with feelings of anger and inadequacy, and found solace in activities that were destructive to himself and others. Black's adult life was characterized by a series of odd jobs and criminal activity. He worked as a delivery driver, handyman, and forklift truck driver, among other jobs. Despite his outwardly unremarkable lifestyle, he had a darker side, becoming a prolific child molester in the 1970s. Black was convicted of several sexual offenses against young girls and spent time in prison for his crimes. Black's behavior toward children was predatory and cruel. He would target vulnerable young girls, often luring them away from their homes and families with the promise of treats or gifts. His crimes escalated over time, culminating in the series of abductions and murders that would come to be known as the Midlands Triangle murders. Between 1983 and 1986, Black committed a series of murders that shocked the nation. All of his victims were young girls between the ages of 5 and 11 who lived in the Midlands region of England. Black had a particular fascination with girls who wore red clothing and would stalk his victims for days before abducting them. Black's method of operation was meticulous and chilling. He would carefully plan each abduction, using his experience as a delivery driver to scout out the best routes and locations for his crimes. He would often follow his victims for days, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. When he finally abducted his victims, he would subject them to unspeakable acts of violence and cruelty. The girls were often sexually assaulted before being murdered, and their bodies were left in remote locations, such as ditches and motorway laybys. The Midlands Triangle murders left a community in shock and fear. Parents were terrified to let their children out of their sight, and police struggled to make sense of the crimes. Black remained at large for years, evading capture and continuing to prey on innocent children. Black's crimes were eventually uncovered in 1990 when he attempted to abduct a 15-year-old girl in Scotland. Witnesses spotted Black's van, and he was subsequently arrested and charged with the attempted abduction. During the investigation, police found evidence linking him to the Midlands Triangle murders. Black was tried and convicted in 1994 and was sentenced to life imprisonment without the possibility of parole. Robert Black's crimes were some of the most heinous in British history, leaving a trail of devastation in their wake. The impact of his actions was felt across the UK, with communities struggling to come to terms with the brutal murders of young and innocent children. The families of Black's victims were left to grieve for their loved ones, with many struggling to find closure. The trauma of losing a child in such a violent and senseless way is unimaginable, and the impact of Black's crimes on these families will be felt for generations. Black's case was one of the most high-profile serial killer cases in the UK, and it led to changes in the way that child abduction and murder cases were investigated. The case also highlighted the importance of sharing information between police forces and the need for improved communication and cooperation in the investigation of cross-border crimes. The legacy of the Midlands Triangle murders is a tragic one, and it serves as a reminder of the importance of protecting children and ensuring that perpetrators of crimes against children are brought to justice. The families of the victims continue to mourn their loss, but the capture and conviction of Robert Black has brought them some measure of closure and justice. It serves as a reminder of the dark and sinister side of human nature, and of the need to be vigilant and aware of the dangers that exist in our communities. It is vital that we work to prevent such horrific crimes from happening again in the future, by educating our children about personal safety and by supporting victims and their families. Thank you for tuning in to Curious Crime today, and we hope you'll join us next time for more true crime content. Remember to stay curious, safe, and keep asking questions.